Well, welcome everybody. Anything happened in the last 24 hours? And thank God that election's behind us, because I was tired of the phone calls and the text and everything else that kept coming in. So it was crazy, but we can do this as an open forum here. So if you guys have questions, just unmute yourselves and chime in anytime you want. What I kind of wanted to go over today, I'll try and make this as quick as possible because I know everybody's busy, is the OFA program. The reason I want to discuss the OFA program with the increase in interest rates over the last month here, since the Fed lowered rates 0.5% in September, interest rates, long-term interest rates, have jumped up almost 0.75 of a point. So we went from 6, 6.125, 6.25 to quoting upper sixes, low sevens on the very best buyers this past month, and it's been tough to do. And this morning, if you've looked at the markets, the stock market's blowing up. I mean, it's up, it's tremendous. You got a great stock market. The bond market, on the other hand, is going the other way. We went from a 4.24 10-year. I think it's currently sitting at 4 points. Hang on with me 1 second. I think it's currently sitting at 4.48, 4.45. That means interest rates are probably going to go up another 1/8 today, maybe even 1/4. So and a big part of it is it's just a knee-jerk reaction to the election yesterday. You'll get some calm restored in the market over the coming days into next week. The Fed meets again tomorrow. All likelihood, the Fed's going to lower 1/4 tomorrow. Hopefully they come out with some I'll say some hawkish comments, which will give us some direction for the market versus some dovish comments, and will bode well for interest rates. But realistically, in this last 2 months of the quarter here, you're probably going to see rates upper sixes, low sevens through the end of 2024. It'll probably be well into January, February before we start getting any relief from that. And that's just what we see happening in the market. So with that said, the reason I want to talk about OFA is it's a first-time homebuyer program. If you have not owned a home in the last 3 years, you qualify as a first-time homebuyer. And the interest rates on that program are why I want to talk about it. Because if we can fit somebody into, bear with me 1 second. If we can fit somebody into that program, they could pick up almost a full 1% or more in interest rates, depending on the program we put them in. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have about 7 different products that we can offer to people. But the rates for that program, if somebody's getting in, doing an FHA transaction, not using any down payment assistance, we could put them on a 5 5/8 interest rate. An FHA interest rate today is about 6.75. So somebody's picking up a full 1% in interest rate by putting them in that program if they fit. So as I said, first-time homebuyer, cannot have owned a home in the last 3 years. And there are income limits to that program. And we'll just use Cuyahoga County since it's where most people work. 1 or 2 person household income limits about 116 grand and about 128 grand for a 3 or more person household. So you're looking anywhere from 9,500 a month to what, 10, 11 grand a month in income. That's a fair amount of income. And those folks can get an interest rate anywhere from 5.625 up to 6.625. The 5.625 is an unassisted FHA program. The interest rate for a 2.5% grant, which is 2.5% of the sales price. So if we have a $100,000 sale price, they're going to get $2,500 to use towards down payment, closing costs, and prepaids. That interest rate is 6.125. And then they have a 5% grant. That rate's 6.625. So that's pretty strong, especially if you're picking up 5% to use towards down payment, closing costs, and prepaids. Now, you do that on a conventional program as well. Same scenarios, unassisted, 2.5% grant, or a 5% grant. Those interest rates run from 6.125 up to 7.125. So somebody putting as little as 3% down can get a 5% grant, conventional financing, and get an interest rate of 7.125. It might be tough today to give somebody a 7.125 with a 20% down payment. So that's why this program has become so useful right now. Now, those interest rates I just threw at you in this program, if they fit into the HEROES program, police officer, medical, something along those lines, firefighter, teachers, you can reduce those interest rates by 0.25%. So right now you can conceivably give a school teacher with no assistance a 5.375 interest rate. That individual doesn't have to think about refinancing for quite a while with that interest rate. And 2.5% grants are going to be 5 7/8. That person doesn't have to think about refinancing in the coming future either. And the next one's 6.375. That one could be a while before it refinances. So that's why we try and fit somebody into the OFA program, if we can, just to give them that interest rate with or without the grant. Up until this week here, it was about a 23-day underwriting period with OFA. That has since dropped to about 6 days. So that really helps now, because we were telling you 45 to 60 days for OFA earlier this month, late last month. Right now, you could conceivably do a 30-day close with OFA if they're at a 5 or 6 day underwrite. So, there's the pro to that. They have another program that we call a mortgage tax certificate. What that does, it's not interest rate driven or anything like that. But somebody put into that program here gets what's called a tax certificate for the life of the loan, as long as they have that loan and don't refinance out of it. And they get a direct tax credit at closing, or not at closing, but when they do their tax returns the following year. That tax credit could be anywhere between $2,000 and $3,000. What that means is, if that home buyer is getting a $2,000 refund, that refund could now be $4,000 just for being in this program. And it doesn't cost the borrower anything to get into the program. So that's another option that we throw people. And again, you have to be a first-time home buyer for that. So that's a huge benefit. It's a direct tax credit. It's not a tax write-off or anything like that. If you owe $2,000 in taxes and you got this $2,000 tax credit, you now owe nothing to the IRS. So another great feature of that. So it's just a money saver for people. Another option that we can do with that program here is somebody's quite tight on qualifying, is we look at the tax tables, we can take that $2,000 tax credit and realize what that equates to per month as far as income. And we can actually give that borrower that additional income to help them qualify with that tax credit. So it's another cool feature. It's a really favorable feature to use the MTC if we need to get somebody to qualify. Quite frankly, OFA is a great program to use if the borrower fits it. The only thing is, the only drawback, first-time home buyer has to be at least not owned a home for the last 3 years. And how do we determine that? We have to have the borrower's last 3 years tax return. So 21, 22, and 23. There is a gray area in there. You might have a first-time home buyer that hasn't owned a home, hasn't been on a mortgage or anything like that, but they're in a relationship, and boyfriend, girlfriend, or spouse may have put them in title on that property that they're not on a loan. That disqualifies them from owning a home in the last 3 years. So, we got to be careful of that. Any questions surrounding this OFA program? Just unmute yourself and fire away if you want to have. Okay, Wendy?
So Don, I think you're working with, I'm actually taking her to see another house, Corey Kubik, or I think you did a prequel for her.
I may have.
I'm going to talk to her. I don't know if she talked to you about this at all. She might have done her name's Corey, Korey. Anyway, I don't believe she was on a deed. David and I bought a house from her and her ex-husband, but I don't believe she was on the deed.
Okay.
So I think she would be considered a first-time home buyer, but she may have talked to you like months ago. So I don't even know if this is something.
How's her last name spelled?
I think it's KO Basic, KOBASIC. I'm
Well,
literally taking her to see it,
yeah, I don't
weekly.
have it in a system, but I do remember talking, that name sounds familiar. So maybe
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot her your number again because I think she would qualify.
real
Um,
quickly for you checking that too is the address of the property that you're aware of that you bought from them. Just
yeah, oh,
look it
I
up in
do
the
know
county
that.
records. Yeah, look it
It's
up in the
one
county.
nine zero Adams in Berea.
Hold on, I gotta look it up for you real quick
Yeah,
here. What was the address?
190 Adams Street.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so funny. I don't work with a lot of buyers, but I just happen to be working with a buyer right now. So, this is really good timing. So I think Benjamin was his name.
Let's see. Valerie Beck sent it to Benjamin Clark.
Yeah,
Benjamin Clark transferred it to you guys. 24. Nope, she wasn't on there.
that's just amazing
She'd
news.
be considered a
So,
first-time home buyer.
yeah, first time home buyer. And what I'll do is she may have called you
Mhm.
a while back, but I'm gonna have her recontact you to talk about if she would qualify for that program. I think that's great. She would be
Gotcha.
thrilled.
And Chris Case just dropped off a bunch of goodies, I think last Monday to, I think some local police stations maybe.
Yeah,
Um, and
it
and
was
she had a flyer
Lakewood
in there
Police.
about this, right,
Lakewood
Chris?
Police.
Yeah, Lakewood Police.
Yeah, so this will be
Yeah,
a program for those folks.
Yeah, I mean, that's nice too. The programs for teachers and
Mhm.
fire and police and that's wonderful too, but I think this is an amazing program. That's an unbelievable savings.
Yeah, and if you think about it, let me just pull this up one more time here. Partners, members. The cool thing about this is too, come on, pull these rates up. Minimum credit score for FHA is 650 or higher, okay? And conventional USDA and VA is 640 and higher. If you think about somebody with a 660 or 680 that's going conventional, their rate's going to be in the mid to upper sevens.
Right.
Put them in this program with no assistance at first-time home buyer, 6.125. Yeah, that's a 1.5 savings almost. That's a lot of money. The PMI is going to be a little bit higher, but there's also reduced PMI because you're using this program. So another benefit.
Don, can I ask a question? This is
Sure can.
Chris. So I've had a few clients that have used the program, where they're saving $7,000 or $8,000, toward closing costs or that type of thing. But now, I just sent somebody to Sean yesterday, I think, or the day before. But I always tell the people that I'm working with, you might qualify, so it's best to check, when I send this. But do you guys automatically just start looking at all the programs, or is it best like when I tell them, hey, make sure you ask them about any grant money or if there's any programs available? That's what I usually prep them anyway when I send them over to you guys. But do you guys kind of automatically look at all the scenarios too? Because some of the people I have, if they might be first-time home buyers, especially some of my Spanish families, if they're not paying cash, then they might qualify for this program.
Yes. First and foremost for me, like one of the first questions I ask a borrower is, are you a veteran? Reason being, it's a no money down deal. Second, are you a first-time home buyer? Okay, so if it's a veteran first-time home buyer, I could drop that veteran at 5 3/8 on an interest rate if he fits the income guidelines. And then once we have all their information in the system, there's a little box that we hit in our loans here. It's called agency special programs. We click one button, and it tells us what programs they qualify for that CCM offers as far as grants that we have available, community grants that are available. And we'll know right away whether it's available for those or whether they're going to fit the OFA programs. So again, usually it's kind of the way we've been brought up in training this business. The first question you ask is, are you a veteran? Second is, are you a first-time home buyer? And what I usually explain to people when they're about the first-time home buyer, I say any more if we go back many, many years ago, 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago, there were really true benefits to being a first-time home buyer. You got interest rate discounts, you got closing cost discounts. There weren't many grants back then except for OFA. I bought my first place, Liberty Bell Condos in Brook Park, using OFA. And back when I bought that 35 years ago, was it 35? 36 years ago, 35 years ago, I had to stand in line for that money. If anybody remembers bond money back then, you know, it came out at midnight and you're standing at line in a local office to get your name, you know, hopefully be able to get that money. Now you don't have to do that. But yeah, those are the first questions we ask to determine whether or not to fit the program. As I was saying, first-time home buyer anymore is more of a term than a benefit. The benefits of being a first-time home buyer, you can get into programs like this, like the OFA program. You can go 3% down, because if you're not a first-time home buyer, you cannot go 3% down on conventional loans. Now, if you have two parties on a loan, one's a first-time home buyer, the other one's not a first-time home buyer, as long as one of them's a first-time home buyer, you can go 3% down conventional. Okay. So again, I just preface that with folks because we don't want anybody thinking that being a first-time home buyer program, interest rates are, you know, way low. There's no closing costs. Everything's free. That's just not the case anymore. But again, just to reiterate, Chris, veteran, first-time home buyer, then we determine what programs they fit into. So that's kind of how we operate as a branch with the loan options that we have.
Okay, great. And I don't know if you have like a copy of your business card that you could send me. Otherwise, I'll just take a snapshot of your email signature, because I have a police officer that I spoke with, I don't know, a couple months ago, but I know he's looking at toward the end of the year, the beginning of the year, but he's I think a Cleveland police officer, but then he also was in active duty and now he's in the guard as well. And the first thing he asked, he said, "Oh, do you work with, you know, like the military VA type of thing?" And I said, "Yes, but I'd like to get him over because I think he'll be approved for something decent."
Excellent news. Yeah, so I'll actually email you these two flyers I've been looking at here. I'm referring to here. One shows all the income limits for all the counties in Ohio, and then the other one's going to show all the programs. I'll make sure I get
great.
Yes.
Thank you.
And if you want, you can find out all this information by going to ohiohome.org. ohiohome.org, O-R-G. And you'll find everything you need on there.
Don, just FYI, Corey's going to be sending you a note because I think she didn't finish the pre-qual conversation with you. So let's.
Been one of the things she may not have been ready. She's
like, should I wait? Should I not wait? Should I wait? Should I not wait? You know, I mean, I think.
Right.
Let me ask you this too. Like, it's great that we're having this conversation the day after the election, but would it have mattered for the balance of this year who won the presidency? Would any of this have mattered?
No.
It doesn't sound like it would have in the immediate present and future.
Right. I don't believe it would have mattered whether you had a Democrat Republican get in. I think it's more of just a knee-jerk reaction.
Sure.
To just everything that's taken place up to this date, the Fed meeting tomorrow. And no matter who gets elected, there's always unknown as to what that individual is going to do. You know, once they get in office, was 100, you know, in January 4th, I think it is. January.
Well, it's so funny. I had somebody somebody say to me, like, some of the Kamala Harris stuff was about like giving $25,000 to first-time home buyers. So you and I talked about that a little bit, but I told him, I'm like, even if she does win the election, that's not going to happen right away. Like, you don't want to wait for that. Like that's a process. You know what I mean? No matter who the president is or who's in Senate or Congress or whatever, you know, it's not going to affect the immediate future of if you want to sell or buy anything.
The concept of that is great, but if you dove into that,
yeah,
like my son who doesn't own a house, he would not, even though he's a first-time home buyer, would not be eligible for that because a family member of his had already owned a home. So it nullifies anybody else doing it. The reality is it's supply and demand. Okay. Sure. You can give $50,000 to a borrower. If you don't have any supply to buy, they're not gonna get it. So somehow, some way, we've got to figure out how to get supply.
Yeah.
The only way to get supply is if we can get the interest rates under 6, because, you know, the consumer has said, if we can get rates into the 5s, they'll be happy to list their house with 3s. Okay, you know, so it's just it's a mental game.
It is, it's such a mental thing, because I'm like, I don't even think it would would have
Yeah, so-
mattered, you know, because if you want to buy a house this year,
Yeah,
nothing's gonna change right now.
you know, and I qualified a customer at 8:30 this morning, and she just asked my opinion. She says, you know, what would you do right now? I says, I've been telling people for 35 years the best time to buy a house is yesterday. Regardless of the market, the best time to buy a house is yesterday, because everything yesterday is cheaper than going forward. You know, there are always, and I always hate talking about refinancing before you even own a house. I said, but there will always be a period of time in the next 1 to 3, 5 years after you purchase that the economy will dictate a refinance market.
Mhm.
And that's probably what's going to happen in the next 8 to 18 months, 6 to 18 months, is something in the economy is going to dictate rates coming down, whatever it may be, and causing a refinance market, or causing the sellers sitting on 3% rates and 4% rates to get out of them.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the economy will dictate supply. That we know the demand's there,
Yeah.
but I don't tell anybody to wait. You can't wait. And I will never, ever use that stupid, ridiculous marry the house, date the rate statement. So it's the worst line that could ever been brought out in real estate. Just, if you want to buy a house, if you're looking to buy, just buy the house. As long as you can afford the payment.
It's interesting, that mindset.
But I'll be
isn't it?
honest, some of the payments I'm seeing right now for people buying homes, I feel for the younger generation right now.
Yeah.
They're oof, brutal.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anything else you guys want to throw at me regarding the market, regarding any type of financing or housing going forward? But it's just, you know, I guess just try and be positive about this. You know, I even said, I haven't wrote off the last 2 months, but I think people were just so damn tired of the last 12 to 24 months of election stuff and getting the text and getting the phone calls.
Yeah.
It's just, leave me alone. And they've put their head down. You got the holidays coming. You know, hopefully we pop a few more deals before the end of the year. But I think after the first of the year, that sigh of relief, people will come back out. Let's go get this. But
Hey, Don, one quick thing. Again, sorry, I'm like dominating your time, but you know, we have the 2 apartment buildings, and you know, we're still in the CapEx phase of it. We're talking about maybe 18 months to the first one, possibly, you know, still 18 more months to possibly try to refinance it. If when interest rates get below 6, that will look better for someone trying to refi apartment buildings, or, you know, what's a nice, if it were you, where do mortgage rates need to be for a refi on an apartment building to look good?
well, you know, I don't, you know, sometimes commercial loans are based on, you know, prime plus.
Sure.
Which prime's currently 8%. Tomorrow it'll be 7.75. Your HELOCs are all going to drop tomorrow. Well, within the next 24, 48 hours after that. But it's a number for you that gives you a payment that works out better, because you can always refinance more than once.
Yeah.
You know, so if the magic number for you, if you're sitting at 8 and want to get to 6, that's your magic number. If the 6.5 and it lowers the payment and creates a better cash flow, then you do that, because it might go to 5.5, 12 months later, and you'll refinance again.
Do it again. Okay.
So
it's the same thought process there.
Yeah. And here's another deal that happened to me just this past week here. First time home buyer, FHA, was buying a house. Deal fell through due to repairs. And I tried to say, don't buy this house. I said, because if you don't have the money to escrow the repairs, the seller's not going to do the repairs. And there were multiple. It was pretty brutal.
Yeah. Deal
dies. He goes, Don, I think we're just going to take a break here and we're going to look to rent. I said, that's fine. I said, don't rule out buying a house. Calls me a week later. Says, Don, we're back in the market to buy. He says, everything we were looking to rent was $1,500 plus a month. And he was only looking at houses 150 to 200. So he's going to have a payment between probably around 1,600. I put him in an OFA program this morning, just locked the deal up. But things that you were looking at, apartments was 1,500 a month.
Yeah,
You can own a house at $1,500 to $2,000, buy the house. Because now you have an appreciating asset. And that's, yes, the house has always been a roof over my head, but for me, it's an asset.
yeah,
I
100%.
tell people every piece of real estate I owned, from my primary residences to my rental properties, was bought from that condo I bought using OFA money with $2,252 out of pocket. I have never taken another dime out of my pocket to buy a piece of real estate. That's the beauty of owning real estate.
Yep.
Yeah. And I try and educate folks on that.
Let me and Don know we can help you.
Yeah, so guys, if you have Sean's kind of on a down low right now. If you need anything and don't get a hold of Sean right away, please call me, text me, email me. We're here to help everybody. Sean covers the East, I cover West. We cover each other. So whatever you guys need, we're there for you. And I'll get these emailed off to you guys.
Thanks,
Any other
Don.
questions?
Thank you.
Talk about? OFA is the big thing I wanted to hit today, and just be patient about the market. There's a lot of volatility right now with the election, so we'll calm down here over the next week. All right, guys, that's all I
Take care,
got for you.
everybody.
Thanks for tuning in today.